If God exists, and if he really is good, then where did evil come from? I'm Joel, and welcome back to Revealer Media. In a previous episode, we talked about the moral sense that exists in all of us, a deep intuition that some things are truly wrong. But recognizing evil is one thing. Explaining its origin is something entirely different. Some argue that evil is just an illusion, a label that we attach to things we dislike. Others suggest that it is merely a natural byproduct of an indifferent universe. Violence, suffering, and death, they say, are simply the way nature works. But these explanations don't go far enough. Natural disasters may be tragic, but we don't call them evil. We reserve that word for actions driven by intention, cruelty, deception, and abuse. Evil at its core involves moral choice. Remember in a previous video, I spoke about the moral code that is built in each one of us. This enables us all instinctively to know that some actions, like the murder of an innocent child, are morally wrong. Now, if you haven't noticed that already, there is also in all of us another conflicting code. A code that says, do what you want, even at the expense of others. That dark side of humanity is what motivates the evil that we often read about in the news. Thankfully, most of us don't go to such extremes, but all of us do have something in us that inclines us to do evil. So where does this come from? If the moral code in us was put there by God, what is the source of this evil bent within us? I believe the answer is that humanity has been infected by an outside evil code. This code did not come from God, but like an external virus, has changed the very DNA of our natures. How did this happen? The Bible describes God's original creation as entirely good. In Genesis, we're told God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So where did evil enter the picture? The biblical explanation centers on freedom. For love to be genuine, it must be freely chosen. Obedience that is forced isn't love, it's control. The Bible reflects this principle when it says, I've set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life. Choice is essential to love, but choice also carries risk. According to Scripture, evil began when a created being used freedom not to love, but to rebel. This being was actually one of God's most powerful angels named Lucifer. After his rebellion, his name was changed to Satan or the devil. The prophet Isaiah describes this rebellion symbolically, speaking of a being who sought power and self-exaltation above God. The Bible says, you said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. You were perfect in your ways from the day that you were created, till iniquity was found in you. Together, these passages form the biblical foundation for the idea that evil did not originate with God, but by a misuse of freedom by a created intelligence. Evil then is not something that God designed. It is something that emerged when freedom was turned inward towards self rather than outward toward love. According to the Bible, humanity was created with the same freedom to trust God or to reject him. The book of Genesis describes how human beings chose independence over trust, and the result was not instant destruction, but alienation, broken relationships, fear, shame, and eventually suffering and death. The Apostle Paul summarized it this way: through one man sin entered the world, and death through sin. This doesn't mean that God suddenly became cruel. Instead, it means that humanity stepped outside of the source of life. As Scripture puts it, the wages of sin is death. Not because God enjoys punishment, but because separation from the source of life naturally leads to decay. This framework helps explain something important: why God simply does not eliminate evil by force. If God were to remove all rebellion instantly, he would also remove freedom. Without freedom, love becomes meaningless. Instead of destroying rebels immediately, the Bible presents God as allowing the great controversy to unfold so that the true nature of evil can be fully revealed. As Jesus said, "By their fruits you shall know them." Evil is allowed time, not because God approves of it, but because truth needs to be clearly seen, not imposed by power. This still leaves difficult questions. Why has this conflict lasted so long? Why do innocent people suffer? And where is the hope fit into all this? These questions we will explore next. But for now, consider this. If evil is the result of freedom misused, then goodness is freedom rightly used. According to the Bible, every human choice matters. As Scripture says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of evil. Whether we realize it or not, we are participants in this great controversy. So the question isn't just, where did evil come from? It's this: in the choices you make each day, what direction are you moving? Towards self or toward love? If you have questions, objections, or thoughts, leave a comment below and we'll keep the conversation going.